Hanjo, how you doing, everybody? Whoa, no traffic here? All right. Yeah, I threatened to tell you guys a little bit about what it's like, you know, my former job working at the bakery. I gotta learn that I don't have to talk quite so high when I'm talking into this thing. My microphone is right next to my lips, so I can kind of, I'm gonna try to talk a little more reasonable volume. So yeah, so here's the typical day, or the typical melange of activities if you're actually working in a bakery. So let me start off by saying what it's not. And what it's not is anything on the Hallmark Channel. I've seen a few of those Hallmark movies, and you know, you see it's generally the well manicured, you know, guy or gal, you know, behind an immaculate counter. You know, they just kind of like worry the invisible dust away with a little cloth while they're talking to the patrons. A nice relaxed sun is shining through the window. You know, of course everybody's drinking hot chocolate. The only time people drink that stuff is in a Hallmark movie, really. Well, that's not true, but oh, I should have yeah, I should have showed you that pothole back there. Oh, well, you can see this one. Anyhow, so that doesn't happen. You know, everybody in the Hallmark movie is like, oh, 24, 27 years old, except for the old crazy guy, you know, who knows a little something about Christmas, you know, and he's got a suspicious beard. And oh, anyway, that's not what working in a bakery in the real world is like. So well, waking up now, I actually got to nice is that a Peter Gabriel song we just passed? I had a sort of a bit of a later start, okay, to the day than a lot of bakery workers. A lot of bakery workers are waking up, you know, and they're waking up 2:30 in the morning and all that stuff. And I got to sleep in till 5, but I get up at 5, get to work. Most of the year, except for the summer hours, it's generally dark. I mean, pitch black for half the year, and then it's, you know, the sun is not up almost ever unless you do the job through the summer. Maybe the sun is up. How you doing? So you get into the work in the dark, you know. So in the winter, you know, you're scraping off the car and, you know, try not to wake people as you leave, and then get to work. And the first thing you got to do is punch in, open things up, turn the lights on, and then you sanitize. So you can't just get right to work or pick up where you left off, because where you left off was cleaned up. So the first thing you do is sanitize everything, all the surfaces you're going to use, and some of the surfaces you think maybe you might use, because to stop and have to sanitize down the road once you're involved in food is a wicked pain. So yeah, you sanitize all your work surfaces. Maybe you got to do some dishes. If you're gonna kick the pan washer on, which heats up the rinse reservoir to about 210 degrees Fahrenheit, then you had best fill the dish pan with hot water before, because, you know, your water heater is going to take some time to heat up after. So you fill up the dish pan that you're going to hand wash some dishes in while the pan washer is filling. And yeah, then you're wiping down all the surfaces, like I said, with bleach water. Now the bleach you use is industrial bleach, so if you get a little speck of it in your eye, you might not see out of that little speck for the rest of your life. So you have to be awfully careful. This is not Hallmark Channel bleach. This is the real world stuff that you have to get, you know, at a supply company. You're not just going to pick it up at CVS or wherever you buy your bleach. What, CVS? Well, I don't know. I was talking about CVS receipts the other day, and how long. Actually, when I left, when I got on this road, if I was spooling out a CVS receipt for a pack of gum, it would still be spooling out. as I babble on here. Yeah, so after the sanitizing, then it's like then it's a matter of what are we doing for the day, you know. So you're gonna identify the machines you need to use, make sure they're set up. Now you saw me, if you look at my shorts, no, don't look at my shorts, my short thing on YouTube. Yeah, you can look at my shorts if you want. I'm wearing my Nicky Boys Toys pants at the moment though. Yeah, so you'll see a time lapse of assembling the dough divider. So if we're gonna make dough, then I have to, you know, get so all right, let's sum up. This is taking too long. Cube of shortening weighs 50 pounds. You need one of those. You need 2 of those. Then a bag of flour weighs 50 pounds. You need 3 of those. So then you need you know, salt and sugar. I'm not going to get into the specific measurements there. And so first in goes the shortening, and you're going to put that in a giant spiral mixer, big enough to take a bath in, and you get that mixing up. Now if you're down on your luck and you have 2 different brands of shortening, then you really have to work at it to get the shortening smooth. Otherwise you get golf ball size or larger balls of shortening, which do not make very good pie crust when you press them out into shells. So you got to get all that stuff in there. Then you put your flour in, a bag and a third, and then you let that mix till it turns into something that looks like mashed potatoes consistency. Then you put in the rest of the 3 bags of flour and you mix that until it looks a little bit like frosting consistency wise. And then that's when you get 2 buckets. Now I couldn't tell you how much water we're putting in, because somewhere along the line somebody measured it and drew some lines on a couple of buckets. So you fill each bucket up to the line and that's where you mix the thank you very much, that's where you mix the sugar and salt. Try to get that fully dissolved. Those go in and you mix it, and now is where it gets hairy, because you got to mix it just enough but not too much. And like you know, I'm not being dramatic, but if you don't mix it enough, the dough is unusable. If you mix it too much, the dough is nearly unusable. And so think about how much 100 pounds of shortening and 150 pounds of flour plus salt and sugar and all that costs. If you ruin a batch of dough, well, you know, think of the money the boss lost and how long you're going to keep that job. So the pressure's on. So then you can make dough, and then you got to let the dough rest a little bit in the mixer, and then you can sort of like use it for whatever you're going to use it for. So if you're making shells, now you gotta, you know, you've assembled the dough divider, which you've seen in my other video perhaps, and then you're weighing out, you know, panfuls of dough, which then you put in the dough divider and manually, you know, pull down the lever and apply all your body weight in order to mush it flat, and then you pull the blades down, which divide the dough into, you know, the size cubes you are hoping for. You know, and that's just weighing out cubes of dough. You know, then what you have to do is put them in pans like pie tins, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, depending what you're making. And then you've got to take them over to the pie shell press, and the shell press heats up, and it heats up these very heavy discs that you have to put on carefully, because if you drop it, that's $1,000 that you just dented and destroyed. So you have to be careful with that stuff, and they're heavy enough and slick enough to really kind of raise the hair on the back of your neck if it starts to slide out of your hand. And then you just press away, you know. And if it's near Thanksgiving time, you're gonna sit there, you know, almost like you're playing a slot machine, and you're gonna press hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands, depending, of shells. You know, that might just be the start of your day, you know. And so generally by the time you've sanitized everything, you got your cubes of shortening ready to go and this and that, maybe then the sun might be peeking up, you know. And of course if you got WERS on the radio, you hear George Knight, and he's keeping you entertained and, you know, playing some good tunes, and you stick around for the news report and all that, and it kind of helps get you through the morning. Well, so that's it. And then you end up with a bunch of pie shells that you made, and this is all from basically dust. So we hadn't bought the pie shells, we made them all. And then you know, you're gonna make your batches. So, you know, you're making, you know, either just name a flavor pie that's made out of fruit, and, you know, and just imagine, you know, you pick up a box of blueberries. So you're going to use maybe 30 pounds, maybe you're going to use 45 pounds of blueberries, you know, and you have to make stabilizer ahead of time, and that's in a bowl, which is like, you know, it's grandfathered in. So this kind of bowl, if the paddle is spinning and you stick your arm in, it will take your arm off, and that's not cool. So you don't put your arm in there, but you also don't put your, you know, a scraper in there either, because it's going to snap off into the pie filling that you're trying to make, and it's going to ruin that whole batch. And you know, it's just on and on and on from there. So and you're filling them with scoops, and of course you have to weigh each single pie out, and then they go into a walk-in freezer. You know, on big racks, you put them on big racks, wheel them into a walk-in freezer, which has a crazy broken ramp that you're trying not to knock the whole thing down. So once you've filled up the freezer, you know, you put your pies in there, they freeze up, and you got to leave them. You leave them overnight, because you can't top a loose pie like that until it's frozen, because if you do, the topping will crack. You know what I'm saying? You don't want your topping to crack. So the next day, some of the dough that you made previously, which then you had to put in bins and refrigerate if you had any left over, then you got to roll that out on a big sheeter, and you have certain cutouts that are just the right size for certain tops, and you cut those out. You lay one on each pie, and then you have to crimp it. Each one gets a heart that you've cut out as well by hand, and then once they're all crimped, they go back in the walk-in freezer overnight, and then they're frozen. Then what you have to do after that, the following day or later that day, if they've had enough time to freeze through enough, then you have to take them to the packaging section, which is an old machine with shrink wrap on it. And so individually you put each pie on a doily into clamshells, close them up, print off labels for each one, make sure it's closed, put it through the shrink wrap machine, which is, you know, not as automatic as it sounds. You're doing everything yourself. And then you shrink wrap each individual pie, and then you have to put the heat gun on it to shrink the shrink wrap around the pie, and then you generally put them in a chest freezer. After you get everything you need done, well, then you go back, you know, the next day or whatever, and you box up a bunch of them, you know, hundreds of pounds of pies. And what you got to do with them then is walk them on a cart, hundreds of pounds of pies, or 100, you know, whatever, however much you need, all the way down a really long hallway, and then you carry each box by hand down a flight of stairs into the retail shop, where you then fill it into the retail shop freezers. You know, the pies that you labored over, whatever, then somebody comes in, they buys it, and hopefully eats it and likes it, and then maybe they tell their friends about it, and then you got to make even more pies. But it's good. It's good for the paycheck, which is not much, by the way. If you're going to work in a bakery, don't expect to raise a family on that income. But yeah, so short story long, it's a lot of hard work. It is not a Hallmark movie, but there's a lot to love about the job. If you're you know, if you're okay at it, if you're good at it, you get left alone. You work from the time you get there until the time you leave. You take a quick lunch break where I would cram my lunch and then go to sleep for 20 minutes or 10 minutes, however much time I had. And then you work until you leave and you punch out, and that's it. You don't have to think about it for the rest of the day. So that's it. That's like working at the pie shop in a nutshell. Obviously much crazier during Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter, like certain holidays, Valentine's Day. You know, the pace picks up, and if just a couple of you doing the job, a couple people upstairs and a couple people downstairs in the retail shop. So, you know, you got 4 people making thousands of pies, and the people downstairs are making scones and apple something donuts and whatever that taste pretty good. And that's it, man. Go work in a bakery. Everything weighs 50 pounds. So I started my job, I was 165 pounds, and I worked for 4 Thanksgivings, all like 4 years, almost 5 years, making pies all day, every day, and didn't gain any weight at all. And people ask, how is it? Well, when you run through one day, a lot of people like get hired, they'll do a day and they don't come back, or they'll do a week and they don't come back, or they do a Thanksgiving holiday and they don't come back. That's the reality. You don't want to own a bakery. I'll have you talk to my former boss sometime, and you'll get it. You only own a bakery if it's your absolute life's dream, because it is nothing but work, and expenses. But you know, I'd like to think it's good work, and the stuff we made puts smiles on people's faces, and that's a good feeling, you know. All right, guys, Matt the Greeter. I'll talk to you soon, and in the meantime, have a piece of pie, would you? Bye.